The 10-year-old sister was the apple of her parents' eye, her frail health consuming most of their energy. The 6-year-old brother was lively and mischievous, his frequent antics dividing what little attention remained. When it came to me, my parents had only one phrase: "You need to be sensible." From the moment I could remember, my parents were always busy with work, busy taking care of my sickly sister, and still finding time to deal with the troubles my brother caused. They truly couldn't spare any energy for me, sending me to boarding school since kindergarten, so when faced with the essay prompt, my mother, during final exams, I couldn't write a single word. That exam made me the only one in my class to fail Chinese. The homeroom teacher's face turned livid as she told me to take the test paper home for a parent's signature. Originally, she intended to summon my parents, but no matter how many times she called, she couldn't reach my mom or dad. When I got home on the weekend, I carefully pulled out the test paper and handed it to my mom. Seeing the glaring red 50 on the paper, my mom slapped me across the face. "How can you be so troublesome, failing already in 2nd grade? Do you think you're worthy of us?" My mom grabbed a rolling pin and hurled it at me. I quickly shielded my head and instinctively curled up to endure the beating. Today my mom didn't hit me for long, just 2 strikes before she stopped. I opened my eyes and peered through the gaps between my arms. My mom held the stick, hugged my dad, and burst into tears. My Wendy. That day, my parents didn't make dinner and hurriedly left after locking the door. Later that night, Grandma came from the countryside bringing steamed buns, and only then did I learn that my sister had been hospitalized again. Grandma told me to boil water in the kitchen. I knew she was going to prepare extra food for my brother, probably braised chicken legs. As I had smelled the aroma long before, I stood up and stretched, taking the opportunity to grab another steamed bun. "Damn girl, eating so much all day long," Grandma cursed loudly behind me. I closed the kitchen door and devoured the bun with soybean paste, imagining it was a braised chicken drumstick. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I desperately held them back, refusing to let myself cry. My sister has mom and dad, my brother has grandma, only I have nothing. For an unwanted child, tears are worthless. Since I was little, I've never celebrated my birthday. When I was younger, my parents would half-heartedly indulge me by buying big cakes and Barbie dolls. But my sister was always so frail, spending more than half of each year in the hospital. My parents simply couldn't remember my birthday. At first, I would remind them, but each time it would earn me a beating. "Your sister is in this state, and you're still thinking about getting things." After that, I learned my lesson and treated their promises as nothing more than hot air. The year I was transitioning to middle school, Tom next door quietly said to me on Friday, "You'll get to eat cake this year. My sister said your parents went to order a big cream cake yesterday. It looks really nice." Tom leaned closer to my ear. "I asked my sister to put extra strawberries on yours. Remember to eat it. Don't let your little brother take it from you." Even though I've been disappointed by my parents many times, I can't help but feel hopeful again. I thought about it from morning till night, even fantasizing during class about what my strawberry cake would look like. After school in the afternoon, I packed my things early and waited in the classroom, rushing out the door as soon as the bell rang, only to be caught red-handed by my homeroom teacher. "Did the teacher say class was over? You're already running off, and you're about to graduate." Still with this attitude, that day, the homeroom teacher kept me behind, and by the time I got home, dinner time had already passed. I pushed open the door to find my parents and the whole family gathered around the table, with my sister sitting at the head. In front of her was the giant strawberry cake I'd been dreaming about all day. Too bad only half of it was left. My mom froze when she saw me, completely unaware that I had just been missing. To cover her embarrassment, she immediately started scolding. "Where the hell have you been? Don't you know to come home after school? Did you expect the whole family to wait for you?" Grumbling, she cut me a slice of the leftover cake and handed it over. "Even if you were eating shit, you'd miss the warm part." My mom's skills are truly unmatched. The tiny piece of cake she gave me didn't have a single strawberry, just a thin layer of cream. I glanced at her, didn't take the piece of cake, and went straight back to my room. My mother erupted again, grabbing my hair and slamming my head against the table. "You think you're something special, huh? We work hard to feed and clothe you, and you dare to give us attitude." My mother's loud voice attracted neighbors from the entire building. With an audience watching, my mom's performance became even more intense, loudly scolding me for being unfilial. Just because I didn't wait for her to eat the cake, she came back with a dark expression. Tom's mother couldn't stand it anymore and intervened. "It's the child's birthday after all, let's not hit her today." Tom angrily crossed his arms and shouted in the crowd, "You're really biased. Claire has never had a birthday cake her whole life. But her sister gets one bought casually whenever she wants." My parents froze for a moment, awkwardly stopping their hands, seeing they'd stopped hitting me. I got up from the floor, grabbed the medicated wine from the living room, and limped back to my room, leaving my parents flustered as they dealt with the nosy neighbors. That night, my father came to my room, urging me to understand my mother as he spoke of their hardships. I silently did my homework, not responding. My father looked somewhat awkward, and as he left, he promised they would treat us equally from now on. My pen paused, and a foolish sense of anticipation rose in my heart again. Early the next morning, when I pushed open the door and saw the empty house, I slapped myself hard. From that day on, all my expectations for my parents vanished. I rummaged through the fridge. There was nothing in my house except half a leftover cake from last night. My sister was hospitalized year-round, and my parents stayed with her at the hospital. My younger brother was taken to the countryside by grandma to be cared for, while I lived at school, so our home rarely had meals prepared. And there was no rice or flour. My mom, afraid I might go astray, never gave me cash. My living expenses were deposited directly onto my school meal card. Whenever I needed to buy daily necessities, I exchanged money from my meal card with Tom. This happens quite often. My parents aren't home when I return, so I usually prepare several days' worth of instant noodles beforehand. But this time, that giant strawberry cake dazzled me so much I forgot everything else. I feel like a foolish emperor, utterly bewitched by the strawberry cake, my favored concubine, while forgetting the instant noodle queen who accompanied me through countless lonely weekends. So, I got what I deserved. This National Day holiday lasts 7 days, staring at the empty fridge. I regretted my past choices like every scumbag who realizes too late in a romantic drama. I had no choice but to go find Tom. Over the years, whenever my parents forgot about me, I survived by mooching meals at Tom's place. After knocking for ages with no answer, I finally checked my phone and saw Tom had texted me early that morning. Their whole family had gone on vacation. Well, damn, karma hit harder than expected this time. I struggled with that palm-sized leftover cake for a whole day. The next day, I searched the entire house but only found a pack of wedding candies of unknown age. The packaging was worn, and the candies inside had melted, sticking to the wrappers like my little brother's snot. It looked disgusting, so I didn't eat them and threw them in the trash. By nightfall, I was so hungry that I dug those candies out of the trash and licked them clean, wrappers and all. The feeling of hunger is unbearable. I managed to hold on for 2 more days by drinking water, but by the 4th day, I was so hungry my eyes turned green, and I even considered digging through the trash. Strangely enough, I've never understood my damn pride. I'd rather rummage through garbage than let my classmates or friends know about my predicament. I'd sooner starve than borrow money from them. I didn't know how to explain it to them. I was afraid of facing their questions, even if they were just casual remarks like, "Where are your parents?" I can't bring myself to say it. I was starving and suddenly remembered there's a pomelo tree in the neighborhood, currently bearing fruit, super tiny ones. I rushed out the door, climbed the tree in a few moves, and picked one. While coming down, I was spotted by Grandma Monica from the 2nd floor, who screamed, "Oh, my ancestors." I jolted and fell down. "Oh dear, you unlucky child. I told you to be careful, and now look at you, you fell." Honestly, if she hadn't shrieked like that, I might have made it down safely. My skin is thick and tough, so the fall didn't hurt me. I bounced a couple of times to make sure I was fine, then happily went to pick up my pomelo. Monica's grandma held my hand and insisted I go to her house for dinner. "Come on, we're having ribs today. Just what you need to build up your strength." I was already drooling with hunger, but on the surface, I pretended to be as polite as those hypocritical adults. After some obligatory refusals, I finally followed Monica's grandma to her house, feigning reluctance. Those were the most delicious ribs I've ever had in my life, I swear. The tender and well-stewed pork ribs exude the refreshing fragrance of winter melon. Even before taking a bite, I couldn't help but swallow my saliva. I wanted to be reserved, but my rationality wouldn't allow it. I was almost tempted to swallow the bones as well. Grandma Monica, like most elderly Chinese, kept piling food onto my plate. I accepted everything without hesitation and ate every last bite. Only after devouring 3 bowls of rice, a large bowl of winter melon and pork rib soup, and a plate of scrambled eggs with tomatoes did my rationality return, prompting me to put down my chopsticks. Grandma Monica wanted to serve me more rice, but I waved my hands repeatedly. I was already stuffed to the throat and truly couldn't eat another bite. Monica's mother-in-law's husband was dumbfounded, saying it was the first time he'd seen such a voracious little girl. Only after eating and drinking my fill did my sense of shame return, leaving me somewhat embarrassed. As I was leaving, I made sure to clutch that pitifully small pomelo. After all, I might have to rely on it in the coming days. Oh dear, ancestors, that pomelo is unbearably sour and tastes awful. Grandma Monica scolded me for climbing trees while stuffing fruits and snacks from her house into my hands. It must be said, Grandma Monica's house is full of goodies. The fruit basket was overflowing with oranges and apples, and under the coffee table were several large jars of chocolates, white rabbit candies, and wafer cookies. Grandma Monica kept grumbling about how they didn't like sweets, yet her son and daughter always brought huge bags of them whenever they visited. Though she complained verbally, the corners of her mouth were harder to suppress than an AK. Hunger unlocked my meridians. I had no idea I could talk so sweetly, my words dripping like honey. Grandma Monica packed a huge bag of snacks for me. Tearfully, I carried all these things home and finally felt alive again. Returning to the empty house from the warm second floor, I felt a pang of loneliness. Clutching the large bag of snacks tightly, I fell asleep in the living room. My sister's illness grew worse, and my parents practically lived at the hospital. At first, they still remembered to top up my meal card every month. By my 3rd year of junior high, my sister had received several critical condition notices. My parents' attention was entirely focused on her, and they completely forgot about me. Every time I had to ask for living expenses, I had to chase them down and endure a beating. It wasn't that my mother begrudged giving me money, she just couldn't understand why. With my sister hospitalized and fighting for her life, I would come to the hospital just to ask for living expenses. My mom doesn't understand my cold-bloodedness. Your sister is in such a state. How can you still have the nerve to ask us for money? Money, money, money. Is that all you think about? You've already spent all we gave you. Can't you be more sensible? But what choice do I have? Without money, I can only rummage through trash bins, only shamelessly mooch off others for food and drinks. I was wailing louder than anyone else in the hospital. You haven't sent me money for 2 months. Mom, I'm so hungry I've been digging through trash cans to survive. Please, just let me finish middle school. Once I graduate, I'll go work. My parents cared too much about their reputation. Seeing me shamelessly rolling around and throwing a tantrum in the hallway embarrassed them, so they hastily pulled out 400 yuan and shoved it at me. With that 400 yuan, I managed to survive for 2 months, counting pennies for every meal. I hated steamed buns the most, but that was all I could afford back then. The school sold steamed buns for 1 yuan each, for a day kept me alive. Paired with the soybean paste I'd brought back from Grandma's house during summer break, 3 meals a day. Just like that, when roommates cautiously asked, I'd say I was on a diet. Damn pride. In middle school, Tom and I weren't in the same class, and we didn't eat lunch together either. I felt too awkward to interrupt her meals with her classmates. Occasionally, Tom would buy chicken legs or braised dishes and deliberately save some for me. That counted as a treat. When I couldn't resist the craving anymore, I'd swallow my pride and ask my roommates, "What's that? Where did you buy it? Is it tasty?" The kind and beautiful girls would warmly invite me to try some. I would then politely decline with a fake excuse. I was just asking. Then I reluctantly accepted their kindness by shamelessly mooching meals. I managed to survive until winter break. I thought I had it bad enough, but reality proved that if you can endure hardship, there will always be more hardship waiting for you. From the second semester of 9th grade through 10th grade, my parents vanished without a trace, leaving me without a single penny. It was during this time that my peculiar sense of pride also disappeared. During the winter break, my parents came back briefly for a few days to handle Grandma's funeral arrangements. Grandma had only 1 son and 1 daughter. My aunt had married far away and only hurried back for a few days during the funeral, taking my younger brother with her when she left. This was Grandma's final wish. She couldn't rest easy about my younger brother, worried that my parents might neglect him. At the time, my parents actually wanted my aunt to take me away with her too. Auntie felt somewhat embarrassed. Over the years, my parents had been struggling financially due to my sister's illness. And they hadn't paid anything for my brother's stay at Auntie's house. He said they'd owe her for now. Auntie knew there was a high chance she'd never get that money back. But out of respect for Grandma's dying wish, she still took my brother in. Her family wasn't well off either. They already had 2 children of their own. Bringing me back as well would be something her husband wouldn't agree to. Besides, we'd only met a handful of times over the years and hardly had any bond to speak of. My aunt avoided my gaze, took my younger brother's hand, and left. At the time, I didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. I thought it was quite nice to have some freedom with everyone gone. I couldn't reach my dad until school started. With just 200 yuan in New Year's money, I managed to survive for 2 months. I asked everyone I knew to help me contact my parents, but without exception, no one could reach them. I started to panic and called my aunt. But she couldn't be reached either. Aware of my predicament, she quietly transferred 100 yuan to me. A month later, I swallowed my pride and called her again. My aunt was in a difficult position, saying she didn't have a single penny left. After hanging up, I began scouting the school trash bins to see which one was cleaner. A day later, my aunt suddenly transferred 200 yuan to me. I didn't dare ask and accepted it instantly when I called to thank them. I couldn't get through no matter how many times I tried. I knew I'd been blocked. The moment I received the money, I went to the cafeteria and ordered a 4-yuan rice bowl. I cried while eating, making sure to lick every last drop of sauce from the plate. Before that, I had run out of food for a week, surviving only by shamelessly accepting scraps from classmates and friends. The cafeteria lady must have recognized me by then. After all, not many people eat nothing but steamed buns. And even fewer can't afford those. I polished off a rice bowl meal in less than 5 minutes. The stern-faced cafeteria lady barked at me to hurry up and hand her my plate. I quickly complied, realizing I'd come to the canteen quite late, probably delaying their closing time. The auntie took my plate and swiftly served me another rice bowl portion. Her usually shaky hands piled it high with meat this time. That day, I devoured 3 full portions. I never knew my appetite could be that big. The auntie didn't ask me for money, and I couldn't afford to pay anyway. From that day on, the canteen auntie and I developed an unspoken understanding. I would always go buy 2 steamed buns before the canteen closed, and she would give me a whole plate of leftover dishes from the day. There were many aunties working in the canteen, all wearing masks, so I couldn't tell if they had changed shifts or not. But every time I lingered by the window, they would hand me plates piled high with food. As long as one survives the lowest point, things will get better. After my aunt transferred me those 200 yuan, my streak of bad luck finally began to turn around. With the canteen auntie's help, I no longer had to worry about meals. A week later, my homeroom teacher found me and said he had successfully applied for financial aid on my behalf. Our family's financial situation isn't good, but my parents never allowed me to apply for assistance. They're too concerned about saving face. I used to look down on them for suffering just to maintain appearances. But truthfully, I've inherited some of that from them to a certain extent. Even when I was so hungry I almost rummaged through trash bins, I never told anyone about my family's situation, especially not how my parents treated me, until I truly almost couldn't go on living. My last shred of self-respect vanished as I went to find my homeroom teacher and told him about my situation. He helped me contact my parents. It took 3 calls before my mom answered, hurriedly saying she was out of town and that my sister was critically ill. She told me to take care of myself during this time, and that was the end of the conversation. Hold on, your sister needs to go for a checkup right now. Once she's done, I'll send you money. That, hold on, lasted half a year. With the financial aid my homeroom teacher helped me apply for, I managed to graduate from middle school. But I had no money. I couldn't repay the cafeteria ladies for the meals they'd given me. After some thought, I wrote them a thank you letter. It was Tom who delivered the letter to the cafeteria ladies for me. When she came back, she told me they had cried reading it. They even held on to the letter and wanted to donate money to me. I swallowed my pride and accepted it. And thank goodness I did. I told the ladies, when I have money, I'll treat you all to a big meal. After the summer vacation following the middle school entrance exam, I didn't dare to rest for a moment and found a summer job. Since I was underage, many places wouldn't hire me. I could only find work at a small shop, and the boss could pay me very little. After 2 months, I had only earned 3,000 yuan, but fortunately, meals and accommodation were provided. The utilities at home had been cut off long ago, and I couldn't stay at school after graduation. With this job that provided meals and accommodation, my entire summer vacation was still quite comfortable. High school is not compulsory education, requiring thousands of yuan in tuition fees each year. Until the day school started in my first year, my parents hadn't returned, and they couldn't be reached. The tuition fees for the first year of high school, along with miscellaneous fees, accommodation costs, and expenses for uniforms, textbooks, and materials, all in all, it added up to around 5 or 6,000 yuan, with the 3,000 I earned from working part-time, plus the few thousand donated by the cafeteria aunties. I managed to scrape together enough to pay the first year's tuition. Tom doesn't go to the same high school as me, and she's a bit worried about my meals, to be honest. I'm even more concerned. Once or twice I can shamelessly mooch off others' meals or scavenge leftovers from the cafeteria. Living expenses can be managed by working part-time on weekends if I budget carefully, but if my parents don't come back, how will I support myself through these 2 years of tuition, material fees, and all sorts of miscellaneous expenses? And if I get into college later, how will I survive? Tom came to my house with a calculator, and we calculated item by item how much I would need at least over these years. Suddenly, I glanced at the TV. My parents weren't often home, so the TV was basically just decoration. For the past 6 months, they hadn't sent me living expenses, the electricity had long been cut off, and the TV hadn't been used even once, but selling it as scrap would still fetch a little money. Then, I set my sights on the sofa, dining table, fridge. Tom, do your parents know anyone who buys scrap? Tom looked at me, his eyes lighting up. Great minds think alike. Tom stood bargaining with the boss at the door, calculator in hand, while I surveyed the empty living room, wondering what else we could scrape together to sell. Tom held the money with a beaming face. Once you start school and live on campus, this place will be empty, right? If we just rent it out, won't we have our living expenses covered? At that moment, I saw a halo of light behind Tom. Tom had a baby face, and wearing his mother's clothes looked utterly out of place, clearly still a child. As for me, skipping meals over the years had left me severely malnourished, short in stature, with a sallow complexion. When the two of us went out together, no one would take us seriously. Tom persuaded her cousin who worked at a bakery to pose as the landlord and rented out my parents and my sister's 2 rooms to 2 students from the nearby university town. We don't usually live here, so we haven't furnished things like TVs or fridges, but don't worry, everything else is provided. We're renting these 2 rooms to you, but the innermost room is reserved for my cousin. She's attending high school nearby and will stay there on weekends. The two had no objections, especially since our rent was set very low, just 300 yuan per room per month. While most rooms in the same complex rented for 500 to 600 yuan, I followed nervously behind my cousin, only feeling at ease after getting the money. Our sofa at home was a very ordinary fabric one, and it only fetched a little over 300 when recycled. The coffee table sold for just a few dozen, while the dining table, which my mom had originally bought as solid wood, fetched a slightly higher price when recycled, over 1,000. The fridge and TV together brought in over 4,000 when recycled. With this first month's rent added, I had nearly 7,000 yuan on hand. I finally felt secure. I went and opened my first bank card in life, deposited the money, and slept hugging that card every day. I also ended my life of eating steamed buns with soybean paste. During the midterm exams of the 2nd semester of my first year of high school, I was suddenly called out by my homeroom teacher. When I arrived at the office, I saw 2 police officers. I was stunned. The officers reassured me not to be nervous, saying they just wanted to ask me some questions. It was my parents who called the police. My sister's condition had improved, and they brought her back home, only to be shocked when they entered. The entire living room was not only empty, but 2 shirtless men also walked out of it. My dad called the police immediately, since he was at work and Tom next door wasn't home either. The 2 college students renting the place got into a fight with my dad. Each side thought the other was a thief. After the police station found out I was the one who rented out the house, my mom grabbed my hair and tried to hit me. The police quickly stopped her. My mom pointed at my nose and cursed me, calling me a troublemaker and shameless. Have you been obsessed with money since childhood? We were only gone for a short while, and you already sold the furniture at home. Did we ever deprive you of food or clothing? What a disgrace. I rolled my eyes. When have you ever provided me with food or clothes? If I don't sell furniture or rent out the house, how am I supposed to survive? You disappear for a whole year without leaving a single penny. Have you ever thought about how I'm supposed to live? I don't even have money for meals." Back then, I was still preparing for the high school entrance exam, and I was so desperate I almost rummaged through trash bins. Tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. "Is wanting to live a crime?" My dad froze, then asked with trembling lips. "Didn't your mom send you living expenses?" "What do you mean? Don't you send her money every month?" My parents started arguing at the police station. I watched coldly. A female officer quietly held my trembling hand, offering silent comfort. The two college students eventually moved out. Before leaving, they asked me whether the deposit was with me or my parents. I said it was with me, and when I tried to return the money, they refused. I stuffed it into their bags. "I still have plenty left from selling the furniture. I'm fine." They didn't say anything, glanced at me, patted my shoulder, and left. Before leaving, they left a lot of snacks delivered to my school. It wasn't until evening that I noticed 800 yuan pressed beneath those snacks. My parents felt guilty and didn't ask me for the money from selling the furniture, but we couldn't afford to replace the missing pieces either. Over the years, my sister's illness has drained all the family's savings, and we've borrowed heavily from relatives. While tidying up the house, my mother kept trying to change the subject. I knew she wanted to sweep things under the rug. My father gave me meaningful looks, hoping I'd take the hint and let it go. I didn't play along. I don't think I'll ever forgive them in this lifetime. I was only 15 during the high school entrance exams, while my peers only had to focus on studying. Their biggest worry might have been romance, and I'm left worrying about what to eat for my next meal. That feeling of being abandoned, the hunger pangs, shamelessly mooching meals, even digging through trash cans, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. My mom got angry again, this time not at the police station. With no one to break it up, I blocked her when she swung her hand at me. I stared straight at her. "Do you know how I survived? For steamed buns with soybean paste every day, drinking tap water, and later I couldn't even afford steamed buns, relying entirely on mooching meals, depending on the cafeteria auntie giving me free food. During my period, I couldn't even afford a 3 yuan sanitary pad. If it weren't for Tom, I might have had to dig through trash bins for used ones. During summer weekends, I didn't even dare sleep in. Busy working part-time jobs. Otherwise I couldn't afford my next meal." "Enough," my mom cried out loudly. "What exactly do you want? Will you only be satisfied if I die?" A sense of powerlessness washed over me. My father hugged my mother and stared at me reproachfully, blaming me for bringing this up again. "Claire, isn't it all in the past? How could it be in the past? Countless times I've dreamed at midnight that the money in my account was gone. Waking up to find I still couldn't even afford steamed buns. Still had to borrow sanitary pads from others, checking the balance over and over, eating until I was stuffed before daring to stop, only looking at cheap items when shopping. What exactly do you want? My mother was still crying and shouting, and my sister came out upon hearing the commotion to hold her. My sister moved her lips but, under my gaze, ultimately didn't speak. What do I want to do? I just wanted you to apologize to me. Mom, my mom didn't apologize. As usual, I ignored her too, treating her like air, and the atmosphere at home was very tense. My dad had no choice but to secretly slip me 500 yuan. For the sake of money, I finally relented and gave my mom a brief response. My mom became even more displeased, thinking I only cared about money and was talking to her just because of it, showing no warmth or humanity. So, she started giving me the silent treatment again, unilaterally. I was perfectly happy with that. My dad was tormented by her difficult personality, and he came again to persuade me to coax my mom. I reached out to him. My dad pulled out his secret stash hidden under his shoe sole. I hesitated whether to take it, given his notorious foot odor. Before the money could reach my hand, my mom rushed over like a gust of wind and knocked it away. She looked at me disappointedly. "All you care about is money. I'm your own mother, and I have to pay to talk to you." My mom started acting crazy again, crying about how cold-hearted I was. I picked at my ear and interrupted her. "What else? If I talk about human kindness and mother-daughter bonds with you, I might starve to death someday. Being cold-hearted at least keeps me alive." My mother knew she was in the wrong, so she got angry again and yelled at me to get out of her house. I thought about the balance in my bank account and quickly packed my things to leave. I never went back until I graduated from college. At first, my dad would come to school to see me, urging me to apologize to my mom and go home for a meal. I stayed silent, Only when he took out money would I mutter a few perfunctory words, making excuses to refuse. After visiting for a semester, they disappeared again. My sister's illness had relapsed. Before leaving, my dad promised he would come to see me off for my college entrance exam. I didn't believe it. It was just that on the day of the college entrance exam, I stood at the gate gnawing on corn for ages. The security guard couldn't help but urge me to move along, and only then did I reluctantly toss away that half-eaten cob, too sticky on the teeth. Won't eat it tomorrow. I won't eat it anymore. After the college entrance exams ended, the class monitor insisted on having a dinner gathering. The beautiful girls from my dormitory pulled me aside and insisted I join. We played rock, paper, scissors. And none of them could beat me, so they ended up covering my share of the meal, rubbing my eyes. I suggested we go to the barbecue restaurant where I worked part-time. A crowd of us swarmed into the small shop, and the elder sister who worked with me winked at me under the boss's deadly glare. Every plate of barbecue she brought out was piled high, making us scream with delight. I laughed like a fool in the crowd. I went to a university far from home, while Tom stayed local, before school started. It was Tom who took me to campus, chattering away like an old mother hen the whole way. When we parted, she hugged me and burst into loud sobs, making passers-by think I'd done something terrible to her. I saw Tom off at the train station, and tears streamed down my face on the way back. My roommate joked that we were as clingy as mother and daughter. Isn't that right? I owe half my survival these past years to Tom. She's more like a mother to me than my own mom. During my freshman year, my dad somehow got hold of my phone number and complained over the call about how I hadn't told them I was going to college. He said they wanted to visit me at university and asked where I was. I quickly hung up, rushing off to my part-time job. I really like college. I can work as many jobs as I want. I specifically choose restaurants to work at. It's tiring, but meals are included. When I get tired of the food, I just switch to another place. My roommate jokes that I'm like a food critic. The working class version. In my sophomore year, my sister passed away. When I heard the news, I didn't feel much, probably because we hadn't communicated much over the years, but I think we share one similarity. We were both struggling to survive. She struggled because of illness, and I because of my parents. At the funeral, I saw my parents after a long time. Their hair had turned completely white, and they seemed utterly drained of spirit, especially my mother, who sat motionless clutching my sister's portrait. The visiting relatives couldn't help but glance sideways at us. After offering incense, they would always come over to pat my brothers and my shoulders. Take good care of your parents from now on. They only have you two. Hearing this, one of us would look up at the sky, the other down at the ground, but neither would respond. Those relatives would point and whisper about us. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we've always had a father but no mother to raise us, so we're used to being ill-mannered. My brother is very tall, at least 6 feet, but as thin as a bamboo pole. I asked him if he had enough to eat. He nodded, and his stomach growled. I looked at his clothes and pants that were now too short, took out my phone, and transferred him 400 yuan. Back then, he secretly used our aunt's phone to transfer me 200 yuan. When our uncle found out, he beat him up. And our aunt ended up deleting me because of it. This was something my aunt secretly told me when I was in college. I knew she wanted me to take my brother away. I didn't respond. My younger brother also adamantly refused to go with me. He knew that following me might mean digging through trash bins, whereas shamelessly staying at our aunt's place could at least guarantee half-full meals. When it comes to shamelessness, my brother and I truly are cut from the same cloth. After my sister passed away, my parents brought my high school senior brother back home. My mom called me daily, brainwashing me into returning home to work after graduation. She said it's not good for a girl to be too far from home, and having parents' support would make life much easier for me. That's complete nonsense. I declined. My usually stubborn mother was surprisingly agreeable this time. Even after I embarrassed her by hanging up, she didn't get angry and still insisted on calling me every day. Out of 10 calls, I'd answer 1 or 2, somewhat curious about what she'd say. Soon I regretted it. My mom's calls were either complaints about me not visiting them or grievances about my brother being distant. I washed the mango, cut it into small pieces, and brought it to his room, but he didn't eat a single bite, just threw it away. My mom, voice trembling with tears, bitterly scolded my brother for his rebellion. I'm a bit curious. Didn't you know he's allergic to mangoes? My mom froze. He's allergic to mangoes. Didn't he love eating mangoes the most? This kid, why didn't he say anything? I kindly reminded her that it's my sister who likes mangoes, then hung up. After my younger brother took the college entrance exam, despite our parents' dissuasion, he applied to universities thousands of miles away. Just like I did, our parents took turns calling me, asking me to talk him out of it. Talk him out of what, and how? Belated affection is cheaper than grass. We didn't need you when we needed you most, and now we don't need you either. After graduating from university, I stayed in the city. No matter how much my mom threatened or bribed me, I refused to go back. In my second year of work, I got married to my college boyfriend. I hadn't planned to tell my mom, but Tom convinced me. What's gotten into you? Don't they have to give you red envelopes when you get married? You won't be able to escape taking care of them when they're old. Don't turn down the money. When my mom heard I was getting married, she almost lost her temper. She asked where the guy was from, how we met, what his family situation was like, and how much dowry he planned to give. She asked a lot of questions, was very picky about my partner's situation, and wanted me to break up directly. My intuition told me something was off. So Tom asked her cousin to investigate. Only then did I realize they had already picked out several blind dates for me back home, just waiting to force me to return soon. My mom thinks the distance between us is irreversible, so she attempts to choose a son-in-law they approve of, hoping to mend our relationship. No, hoping to control me. Full of questions, I blocked my mom immediately. My dad sent me a lot of lengthy messages, basically saying that marriages without parental blessings don't last. I immediately blocked him too. Later, when I got married, they didn't even show up. No red envelope, no dowry, nothing. My mom said that if I went back, she'd prepare everything properly for me. I treated her words like fart. At the wedding, my brother came and walked me down the aisle in place of our father. After not seeing him for years, he finally had some meat on his bones. He used to be as thin as a skeleton. Seems like he's been eating well. My brother and I didn't talk much, but before leaving, he sent me a red envelope, 8467-6. It contained a random amount of money. My partner insisted it must have some special meaning, so we spent ages trying to decode it. What's the point? Kids like us who grew up unwanted, struggling just to survive. What do we know about romance? Staying alive is hard enough. These past few years, my brother hardly ever comes home. Our parents threaten to cut off his tuition if he doesn't, but he's stubborn. He'd rather work 3 jobs than give in. In his second year of college, his boss withheld his pay, and he couldn't scrape together the tuition. That's when he finally called to borrow $3,000 from me. He's a senior this year, and this should be all the money he has. The year my child was born, my parents somehow got back in touch with my partner. They bought a lot of things for my child, hoping I would visit them more often. I declined. My brother went even further. He's male, and my parents essentially supported him through his entire senior year of high school. Relatives from both sides of the family took turns pressuring him to take on the responsibility of caring for our aging parents. My younger brother never intended to shirk his duties, but our parents wanted him to return home and even tried to interfere with his marriage plans. He couldn't take it anymore. As a civil engineering graduate who landed a job at a state-owned enterprise, he directly applied for overseas assignments and hasn't come back for years. He returned once when my child was born. Before leaving, he told me he planned to remain unmarried and childless for life, asking what I thought about it. What could I do? I helped him look at several nursing homes, advising him to invest early and prepare. My brother left with a smile. My partner was eager, sensing there was a story behind my brother, and urged me to dig deeper. I handed the child to him, and within a minute, he was too busy to remember anything about it. I never asked my brother what he went through during those years at our aunt's house, just as he never asked how I survived alone in my 3rd year of junior high. Later, when our parents couldn't wait for us to return, they planned to pack up and come to live with either my brother or me for their old age. Both my brother and I told them we'd already scouted several good nursing homes here, just waiting for them to choose. We could contribute money, and that was all we could contribute. The money shouldn't be too much either. This is what my younger brother said. Considering they haven't spent much on us over the years, my parents argued for a long time and mobilized all our relatives, but this time we blocked everyone. In the end, my parents chose to come and rely on us. After 3 years here, my brother and I only showed up on the day we sent them to the nursing home. The nursing home called saying they were sick. I was impatient. If they're sick, just send them to the hospital. They have medical insurance. Just deduct the money. Contact us if the funds run out. My brother was even harsher. Why call me? Am I a doctor? Can I cure them? After spending 3 years in an unfamiliar nursing home, my parents became so depressed that they eventually packed up and returned to their hometown. I heard they often complained to anyone who would listen about how unfilial my brother and I are, calling us two ungrateful wretches. Then they would reminisce with others about their eldest daughter, who passed away too soon. Hearing these words, my brother and I exchanged a glance and smiled, feeling utterly unperturbed. Many people have come to persuade us to let go of the past. But why should we? The passage of time does not erase the scars of the past. The journey has been too arduous for us, and those scars, we cannot forget them, nor do we wish to. I won't even consider forgiving. Forgiveness is too extravagant. Let it be. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I was the most superfluous child in the family. My sister was the beauty pageant champion, and my brother topped the provincial college entrance exam. Only me, utterly ordinary. The only award I ever received was a little red flower in kindergarten. On my 18th birthday, I made a wish to my parents. This new year, I wanted to see the southernmost sea. During winter vacation, my parents waived the plane tickets they had booked long ago. Upon arriving at the destination, my brother and sister cheered at the sight of snow in the north. We stayed in a homestay for many days. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, I woke up early and knocked on my parents' door, only to find it empty. I opened my phone and saw their New Year's Eve reunion dumpling photos, only then realizing they had come home last night. I stood in front of the empty house door, feeling somewhat at a loss. My first reaction was to reflect. What exactly had I done wrong? Before I could figure out the answer, footsteps sounded from the stairs behind me. It was the homestay owner coming up. I instinctively apologized. I'm sorry, I overslept. I didn't know my parents had both left last night. The homestay owner's expression instantly changed. I immediately lowered my head, bracing myself for a torrent of scolding, but the expected reprimand never came. Instead, a large hand gently covered my head, giving it a couple of light, comforting pats. What kind of terrible parents would do this? Going out for fun and leaving their child behind. Come on, give me your parents' phone number. I'll call them to come back and get you. Feeling the warmth on top of my head, for some reason, my lie slipped out effortlessly. Don't contact them. This is a challenge my parents left for me, to see if I can survive on my own now that I'm an adult. But I rarely lie. Nervously lifting my head, I met my boss's concerned gaze. Could you take me in? I can cook and do housework. The boss frowned, still insisting. No, we must contact your parents. I pulled my ID card from behind my phone case and knelt straight down in front of my boss. If my parents were worried about me, they'd send money for me to go back. I'm an adult. I can take responsibility for my actions. Please, don't make me leave. Okay, this isn't the first time mom and dad have left me outside. I also know that once I contact them, they'll either come back to pick me up or book me a return ticket. But every time I appear safely before them, their little bit of guilt vanishes into thin air. Even when I once told them I was nearly kidnapped by traffickers, they just reminded me to stay closer next time I go out. Many times, I also wondered if they really disliked me. Later, I realized it wasn't dislike, just too little love, not even a fraction of what my older siblings received. After all, I was a child with no redeeming qualities, an extra burden at home. How could I possibly compare to them? The landlady was a young woman from the south. After learning about my situation and hearing that I was the third daughter in my family, she looked at me with a complicated expression and sighed softly. Working here doesn't pay much, just $80 a day with meals and lodging included. Do you agree? I stared at her in disbelief, then nodded with all my might. Being taken in was already more than I could hope for, let alone getting paid. I'd already made up my mind. Once I had the money, I'd go see the ocean down south on my next holiday. All right, come with me to work. First, let's go put up the couplets. The boss's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I looked up at him incredulously. Am I qualified to put up the couplets? The boss's eyebrows furrowed slightly, as if he wanted to roll his eyes at me, but he held back in the end. There's no such thing as qualification or not. Just get the work done quickly and don't delay dinner. I took the brand new couplet. It's red paper carrying the scent of ink, but holding it in my hands felt strangely unreal. Spring festival at home was always busy, putting up couplets and hanging lanterns. Each task had its own traditions. As the eldest son, my brother was the only one who had the privilege to handle these tasks. My sister studies well and is beautiful, so she deserves this blessing. I carefully pasted the couplets, and as soon as I finished, I was pulled inside by a hand. The dining table was filled with steaming dumplings, and a group of people crowded together but left a spot for me. I froze. In previous years during the new year, I would always be busy in the kitchen with a group of relatives, waiting until everyone at the front had finished eating before it was our turn. More often than not, I didn't even have the privilege of sitting at the table to eat. Eat up. What are you looking at? The boss's wife picked up a dumpling and put it in my bowl. Their warmth was contagious, and as I ate the dumplings, I gradually found myself joining in their conversation. Outside, the crackling sound of children playing with firecrackers echoed. The landlady took out 2 boxes of small firecrackers from the cabinet and shoved them into my hands. Go have fun. I was a bit surprised. Don't I need to work? It's New Year's Day. No cleaning today. Do it tomorrow morning. You're free today. Go have fun. The landlady smiled and gave me a gentle push. Seeing their insistence, I finally stepped out the door, watching a group of children much younger than me running freely through the night celebrating the new year. I couldn't help but smile. Truth be told, I never really liked Chinese New Year. I'm not the perfect child that people always talk about. In those lively gatherings, even quietly breathing in the corner feels wrong. But I realized that spending New Year's away from home for the first time actually feels more comfortable. Just then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I quickly opened it. It was a message in the family group chat. It turned out to be a family portrait sent from home. I held my phone up for a long time, but never received any messages from mom and dad asking where I was. I let out a long sigh, unsure whether it was out of frustration or relief. Opening the photo, I saw everyone gathered around grandma and grandpa in the center, with my older siblings standing on either side, all smiling brightly, without me. This photo seems even more harmonious. Suddenly, warmth enveloped my back as a thick coat was draped over my shoulders. I turned my head. It was the landlady. She looked at the phone screen in my hand, then her gaze settled on my face. Little girl, do you want to go home? Before I could answer, the landlady started chattering away. My family is also from the south, and I'm also the 3rd child. Unlike me, I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother. At home, the thing I hated most was Chinese New Year. The family was poor, so new clothes had to be prioritized for my sister and brother. After my sister wore them, they could still be passed down to me the next year. But my brother, well, just because he was a boy. She paused, as if remembering something, then smiled faintly. It's a good thing I married far away, so I don't have to go back home and endure that torment anymore. After hearing the landlady's story, somehow my eyes also welled up with tears. But I know you shouldn't cry during New Year, or you'll be crying all year long. I could only look up at the sky, where there was nothing, yet my eyes grew dry and strained. Actually, it's not that I don't want to go home. It's just that I feel a bit redundant at home. Might as well not go back and cause more trouble. The days that followed at the guest house became simple and fulfilling because of how busy I was. On the 6th day of the Lunar New Year, I received my first message on my phone. Nervously taking it out, I saw that the sender wasn't my parents but a cousin I didn't get along with well. I couldn't quite describe the feeling in my heart. I still opened the chat window. You didn't have a fight with your parents, did you? I didn't see you during the New Year's greetings today. I didn't dare to say anything, afraid it might cause an argument. Even through the screen, I could picture her amused expression. Actually, you're like this too. There's no need to constantly compare yourself to your older siblings. They're good-looking, smart, and obedient. What do you have to compete with them? I stared at those words, initially wanting to type out the truth to her. I was left behind in the north by mom and dad. I never thought about comparing myself to my older siblings, but before hitting send, I deleted it word by word. What would sending it even prove? Who knows? Maybe when mom and dad realize I'm gone, it'll just ruin their New Year's mood. Better pretend not to know and honestly finish this winter break job, earn some money, so next time they forget to give me living expenses. I won't starve, but I never expected that on the 8th day of the Lunar New Year, I would see my 3rd aunt and cousin visiting the homestay. They were surprised to see me wearing an apron and wiping tables, but still greeted me warmly. Why are you here? I'm here for winter break work, I answered truthfully. Auntie looked utterly bewildered. Your family is at least upper middle class. Why would you need to work during winter break? She said, I'll call your parents later to get to the bottom of this. I didn't know how to respond, so in the end, I didn't. Auntie and her family stayed for 3 days, and I was on edge the entire time. Even as I cleaned up the room they had vacated, I still hadn't received any messages from my parents. I chuckled self-deprecatingly. Of course, at my age, I should know better than to mistake polite remarks for genuine feelings. Back then, whenever Auntie bumped into my sister on the street, she would immediately call my parents. She said my sister is so beautiful, how could we let her go out alone? They should spend more time with her. What if someone takes her away? When it comes to my matters, it always seems to be later, or next time. When I was little, I still held on to hope, but later I thought I had gotten used to it. At this moment, I realized that deep down, I still had hope after all. Before I knew it, the Lantern Festival arrived. I heard guests checking out at the front desk one after another, saying they were going home to celebrate the Lantern Festival and have a reunion dinner. My hands paused while tidying up, and I mustered the courage to call my parents. I dialed my father's number. After a long beep, there was the busy tone of no answer. I called a second time, then a third, with the same result. Just as I was about to give up, my hand unconsciously pressed the dial button for the 4th time. This time, it went through. I didn't even have time to call out, Dad. Before I could speak, his official businesslike voice came through the receiver. Hello, happy Lantern Festival, but I'm spending today with my family. If there's anything, please contact me after the festival. The next second, the call was disconnected. Listening to the dial tone in my phone, I suddenly realized he had mistaken me for a supplier pushing for business. I know they never mistake calls from my older brother and sister, because Mom and Dad set special ringtones for them. Labeled Precious Son and Precious Daughter, I lowered my gaze and opened my social media feed, where the latest update was from my brother. Scrolling through photo after photo revealed their entire trail from this new year. The whole family gathered together to make dumplings, take family photos, set off fireworks, and go to the movies. And today, they're visiting the temple fair. I can even guess that my brother must be the best at solving lantern riddles. And he'll give the biggest lantern he wins to my sister so she can write down this year's wishes. I'm clearly their family too. At this moment, I feel like a thief, peeking at their happiness. More than ever, I realize how utterly superfluous I seem. Miss, can this room be cleaned now? A guest's voice came from behind me. I wiped my face hastily, sniffled, and swallowed all my emotions. Coming, I know, it's not anyone's fault. It's just that I wasn't born outstanding enough. Without any memorable qualities, at the end of a day's work, I retreated to my room feeling wronged. The door was gently knocked, and it was the landlady who came in carrying a bowl of sweet rice balls. School's starting soon, isn't it? She placed the bowl on the table. You've done really well these past few days. Here's your pay. Remember to buy your ticket to school. A thick red envelope was handed to me, overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. I took it and gave it a slight squeeze. It felt like more than just a little over 1,000. I quickly opened the red envelope, ready to push the extra money back. The landlady pressed my hand and smiled. Just consider it me making up for the regrets of my youth. When I was young, how many times did I want to run away from home? But I didn't have your courage to stay out alone for so long. The red envelope felt burning hot in my hand. In the end, I accepted it, after the Lantern Festival. It's time for school to start. I didn't go home. Heading straight to the train station from the homestay, back in the school dormitory, I had just finished tidying up my bed when my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Mom. My mind was blank, yet seemingly filled with countless thoughts. When I answered, was it accusation, grievance, or pretending nothing had happened? The phone buzzed against the sheets, my finger hovering over the green button. Only after taking a deep breath did I swipe to answer. I pressed the phone to my ear. The receiver was dead silent. The dormitory was empty, only the faint sound of my own breathing echoing in my ears. I waited for a long time, so long that I began to think the phone call from my mother was just an illusion. But when I picked up my phone to check, the call duration was ticking away second by second on the screen. Is my phone broken? Summoning my courage, I spoke with a dry throat. Mom, there was still no sound at all. I looked at the ongoing call timer but didn't have the courage to hang up and call again. What if she was just temporarily caught up with something? Time crawled by slowly, each second feeling like a lingering death. until the timer reached 3 minutes and 12 seconds. A faint sound of fabric rustling finally came through the receiver, followed by Mom's voice tinged with surprise. When did I make this call? I felt all the blood in my body freeze in that instant. So, it was just an accidental touch. A scalding stone seemed lodged in my throat, the sour bitterness rushing straight to my nasal cavity. I couldn't hold back. A short, choked sob escaped through my clenched teeth. The other end of the line fell silent for several seconds. Is that, Judy? Mother's voice carried a hint of hesitation, as if recognizing someone she hadn't seen in a long time. The next moment, she too seemed to finally realize that this winter, the family seemed to be missing someone. Why didn't you come home for the new year? There was no reproach in her tone, nor concern, just pure, factual curiosity. Before the new year, your brother and sister said you didn't come back, and your dad and I thought you went out with your classmates again. During all these years you've been at school, your dad and I got used to you not being home, so we forgot to call you. Mom rambled on about many things, but I could tell she was making excuses, for herself, for Dad, and for my brother and sister. She waited for my response for a long time before asking again, "Where are you now?" I opened my mouth, and finally, with all my strength, I squeezed out a few words from my throat. "At school, the dorm." Hearing this answer, she noticeably sighed in relief on the other end. That's good, that's good. Study hard at school, don't wander around. Only by completing your studies can you find a good job. Let's leave it at that for now. I've got things to attend to here." She hung up the phone first. I listened to the busy tone coming from the receiver, maintaining my phone cradling posture, completely motionless. A few seconds later, the phone screen lit up again. It was Mom transferring me 10,000 yuan via WeChat, immediately followed by a WeChat message from Mom. "This is your living expenses for the semester. Let me know if it's not enough." I had prepared for almost a month, rehearsing sentences over and over in my cold bed, but it seems I couldn't utter a single one. But now I realize there's no need to say them anymore. I hugged my knees and buried my face deep into them. This time, I didn't suppress it anymore and couldn't help but start sobbing. Yet, just then, the sound of a key turning in the lock came from outside the dorm room, followed by the soft click of the doorknob turning. My whole body stiffened, and I instinctively tried to stop crying. I didn't want anyone to see me like this. I frantically wiped the tears from my face, but the back of my hand was soon soaked, and the tears kept falling like beads from a broken string, unstoppable. The person outside seemed unable to turn the key properly, twisting it twice more. Then came a soft mutter, tinged with confusion. "Strange, wrong door." Then came the sound of footsteps fading away. The dormitory fell silent again. I remained curled up, tears streaming down silently. It was just someone accidentally entering the wrong dorm, inserting the key into the wrong lock. Just now, Mom accidentally touched her phone and dialed the wrong number. It's as if the world accidentally created an unnecessary me. I don't know how long I cried until the dormitory door was actually pushed open. "Judy, why didn't you turn on the light?" It was the voice of my roommate Sarah, carrying 2 large bags of snacks in her hands. Behind her followed 2 other chattering roommates. The dorm light was switched on with a snap, and the sudden brightness made me instinctively squint. "Oh my God, Judy, why are your eyes so red?" Another roommate, Alice, put down the milk tea she was holding and rushed to my bedside in a few quick steps. "Who bullied you?" The 3 of them surrounded me, their eyes filled with concern and curiosity. "Did you get dumped by some jerk?" Mia adjusted her glasses, analyzing the situation with a serious expression. "Tell us which department he's in, we'll teach him a lesson." Sarah placed snacks on the table and leaned in. "Yeah, let's expose him publicly so the whole school can see his true colors." Watching their indignant expressions, the frozen part of my heart seemed to crack open slightly, letting a warm current seep through the fissure. I sniffled, but tears stubbornly welled up again. I quickly raised my hand to wipe them away haphazardly, forcing a smile that looked worse than crying. "No, he's not a scumbag." I lowered my head, my voice muffled. "It's just, when I was coming back, the wind was too strong, and some sand got in my eyes. I rubbed them for ages, and it still hurts." This excuse was so flimsy I didn't even believe it myself. "But they did. How silly can you be? You shouldn't rub your eyes when there's sand in them." Sarah pulled my hands away and leaned in closer for a better look. "Here, let me blow it out for you." She gently pried open my eyelids, puffed up her cheeks, and carefully blew air into them. the warm breath brushed over my eyeballs, tickling slightly, yet strangely smoothing out the wrinkles in my heart. Alice and Mia were also nervously directing from the side. Over here, over here. It still looks a bit red. Blow a few more times. If it doesn't work, go buy some eye drops. They gathered around me, treating me like fragile treasure, unlike in that family of 4. Where I was like luggage that could be discarded at any time. In this tiny dorm room shared by 4, I was needed. For group assignments, they would habitually leave the most crucial literature review section to me because I did it best. For weekend dinners, they would let me take charge of ordering because I always remembered everyone's preferences and dietary restrictions. Even for grabbing seats in elective courses, they relied on me to secure the perfect golden spot in the back row. We shared meals together, admired handsome guys together, enjoyed activities together, and faced hardships together. I suddenly realized why I was being so overly sensitive during this year's New Year celebration. It wasn't because I had suddenly become fragile, rather. It was because I genuinely felt needed in the dormitory, truly cared for by others, having experienced such warmth. Returning to that home and facing that taken for granted neglect again made the sting feel so much sharper. I'm not redundant in the dorm. In the blink of an eye, the May Day holiday is almost here. While they're agonizing over how to spend May Day, I stood in the center of the dorm. I'm treating. Let's go see the sea. Holy crap. Judy, did you strike it rich? Alice exclaimed in surprise. I lifted my chin proudly and declared, I earned money working during winter break. And so, on that sweltering early summer day, the 4 of us girls, each with a backpack, squeezed onto the green-skin train. Youth is right beneath our feet, with iron determination carrying us to distant horizons. The train clattered for 8 hours, and we finally reached the seaside at dawn the next day. That sea was bluer and vaster than I had imagined. In the afternoon, the tide receded, revealing vast stretches of wet tidal flats. Sarah pulled out a small bucket and shovel she had prepared from her bag and proposed, Girls, the beachcombing competition starts now. The rule is, whoever collects the least by sunset loses. The loser has to handle all the dorm chores next month. Fetching meals, boiling water, and picking up packages. Deal. We scattered in excitement, each claiming a patch of tidal flat and getting down to work. I was lucky and soon found a small crab under a rock, then dug up a few clams from the sand. The setting sun dyed the sea surface orange-red, and the sea breeze made me pleasantly tipsy. While I was intently digging for small crabs, someone suddenly tapped me lightly on the shoulder. A familiar voice sounded in my ear. Little sister, hello, could you trouble you to help us take a family photo? I looked up and saw Mom holding out a phone towards me. My gaze went past her, looking behind her. Not far away, Dad stood in the middle, with my brother and sister leaning against him on either side, already posing for the photo. The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Judy, my mother's voice sounded uncertain. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, forcing out a practiced, perfectly rehearsed smile. Of course I can help you take a family photo. I stepped forward and naturally took the phone from her hand. On the screen was the viewfinder, framing all 4 of them. Dad stood awkwardly. My brother avoided eye contact, and my sister crossed her arms with an expressionless face. Only Mom still tried to maintain a smile. I adjusted the angle slightly, positioning the setting sun behind them precisely at the golden ratio point of the composition. Smile, I said in a polite, almost stranger-like tone. The shutter clicked, freezing their slightly awkward smiles in place. I took a few more shots for them. Horizontal framing, vertical framing, to ensure everything was perfect. All right. I handed the phone back to my mom and turned to leave, walking away quickly. Judy, my mom caught up from behind and grabbed my wrist. How, are you here too? For a moment, I didn't feel like sharing my business with her. After all, I've shared before, and it never led anywhere. At that moment, Sarah's voice rang out. Judy, come here quick. I found so many clams, and a huge crab just ran into a crack in the rocks. I immediately pulled my hand free from my mom's grip and turned toward Sarah. My smile becoming genuine. Really, I'm coming. My mom froze in place, staring at Sarah who had suddenly appeared. Then looking back at me, I turned my head to glance at her and said, Mom, I'm going to hang out with my classmate. My mom stood dumbfounded, watching me run toward the reef without looking back. Truth be told, I hadn't run far before my eyes uncontrollably welled up with tears. The vast sea in my vision began to blur and tremble. Oh, Judy. Sarah stopped in her tracks and nervously leaned closer to me. Did sand get in your eyes again? Let me blow it out. She was about to pry open my eyelids again, just like last time. I shook my head, took a deep breath, and forcefully suppressed that sour, stinging sensation. I wanted to nod, to brush it off with the same clumsy excuse as before, but staring into Sarah's concerned eyes, I couldn't bring myself to lie. That was my mom just now, watching the four figures regrouping in the distance. I said softly, she came to the beach with Dad, my brother, and sister to take a family portrait. Sarah froze momentarily. In the dorm, everyone's favorite topic is their own family. Mia complains about how much delicious food her mom sent her again, making her gain 3 pounds. Alice brags about the antique treasures her dad managed to find. As for Sarah herself, she's always bickering with her older brother. Only I rarely mention my family. Sarah was sharp as a tack. She immediately grasped the subtext of those words, a family portrait, yet I wasn't in it. She didn't press further, nor did she spout those meaningless platitudes like, your parents must have had their reasons. She just reached out, gave my shoulder a firm pat, and then pulled me into a tight embrace. All right, no more dwelling on it. Her voice was resolute. Forget about them. You've still got us sisters. Come on, let's go catch that big crab. We're definitely having a feast tonight. As the last sliver of the sun dipped below the horizon, our seaside scavenging contest came to an end. My haul was meager, just a few small crabs and a handful of clams in my bucket, but somehow, I still managed to avoid coming in last. Alice came in last. In her bucket, there were only 3 tiny crabs, each smaller than my palm, lying lonely at the bottom. This was highly unusual. Alice was the most competitive person in our dorm. She had been the most boisterous all afternoon, and I distinctly remembered seeing her bucket filled to the brim. I was puzzled when I caught sight of several crabs scrambling to burrow into the sand under a rock not far behind her, along with a pile of freshly dumped clams nearby. It suddenly dawned on me. I remembered a childhood rule in our family. Whoever ate the slowest had to wash the dishes. My sister ate delicately and was always the last to finish, but many times I noticed Mom would deliberately put down her chopsticks when my sister was almost finished eating, go to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, or meticulously pick at a fishbone, forcing herself to be the last one to finish. So this is what it feels like to be cared for so quietly, warm, yet somehow making me want to cry. I might be superfluous at home, but not in this dormitory of 4. Back at the homestay, we noisily rushed into the bathroom to wash up. I had just changed my clothes and stepped out when my phone buzzed with a vibration. It was my mom directly transferring 10,000 yuan over. Below the transfer was a small line of text. Take good care of yourself. It's always like this. Every time you forget about me, you try to compensate afterward with money. I stared at the transfer screen, my finger hovering over the accept button, hesitating to press it. Suddenly, a hand reached over from beside me and took my phone. Alice glanced at the screen and, without hesitation, immediately tapped accept payment. Then, she quickly responded via voice message, we'll take good care of her. After sending it, she shoved the phone back into my hand as if nothing had happened and said, what are you staring at? Come out and have some watermelon. Mia already cut it. I stared at her blankly. And Sarah made a funny face at me. Alice is right. We'll definitely fatten you up nice and plump. Mia adjusted her glasses and added earnestly, don't worry, I have experience when it comes to taking care of people. It suddenly occurred to me that Alice's sister works at the same company as my sister. They might have already known something about our family situation, yet they silently chose never to bring it up or inquire, protecting my dignity in their own way, quietly sheltering me under their wings without drawing attention. That night, the 4 of us squeezed onto one bed and talked for hours. For the first time, I poured out everything, from the repeated abandonments of childhood to the ache of being left behind during holidays. They didn't interrupt, just listened quietly. After saying that, I felt like the stone that had been weighing on my heart for over a decade was finally lifted. In our sophomore year, the 4 of us hit it off immediately and pooled our scholarships and part-time savings to start a small design studio. I began trying to live like an adult. For the first time, I mustered the courage to negotiate with an unfamiliar client over the phone for an hour, just for the remaining 300 yuan payment on a design project. The first time I faced a dishonest fabric supplier, armed with contracts and chat records. I bravely recovered our prepayment. The first time I pulled 3 all-nighters. The proposal I created caught the client's eye at first glance. Securing the first major order since the studio was founded, life was filled with all kinds of surprises and challenges, busy yet fulfilling. Amidst such high-intensity busyness, it seems I forgot to go home too. On the day of our college graduation, our studio had already gained some recognition. The four of us rented a slightly larger apartment near the school, which served as both our living space and office. But I wanted a place entirely of my own. Using the money I had saved, I made a down payment and bought a studio apartment of less than 20 square meters in the city center. Though small, it was my own home. On the day I moved in, as I lay on the bed I had chosen for myself, my phone rang right then, displaying two characters on the screen, Mom. I swiped to answer, and after a brief silence on the other end, my mother's voice finally came through. Judy, how have you been these past few years? I glanced around my tiny home that belonged solely to me and responded decisively, pretty good. There was another silence on the other end of the line. Just as I was about to hang up, Mom spoke again. Your father, he's not going to make it. If you have time, come back home. I held my phone, stunned for a moment. My first reaction wasn't sadness, but surprise. I booked the earliest high-speed train. When I stepped out of the station, my brother came to pick me up by car. He leaned against the car door smoking a cigarette. When he saw me walk out, his gaze lingered on me for several seconds before hesitantly calling my name. You've changed quite a bit, he said, starting the car and making small talk. I fastened my seatbelt and watched the streetscape rapidly receding outside the window. I've walked this road for over a decade, but now, it seems somewhat unfamiliar. Returning home, I found people sitting in the living room, my sister and many relatives. Their eyes all turned to me simultaneously, scrutinizing me as if I were a stranger. My sister stood up, scanning me up and down with a furrowed brow. Do you even remember how to come home? Ever since you left for college, you've become wild at heart. It's been years, and you haven't even bothered to visit. Her tone was exactly as I remembered it, that same self-righteous, condescending reproach. I looked at her and suddenly laughed. Come back for what? To keep helping your family take portraits, to keep being your free backdrop, or to come back and fight your brother for the family inheritance. Her sister's expression changed instantly. Her brother had just parked the car and walked in, catching the last sentence. He paused at the entrance. I ignored their reactions and continued speaking. During these 2 years at school, I started a small studio with friends. It's not big, but it's enough to support myself. I have my own career, my own place, and I'm doing just fine. If Mom and Dad need it, I can pay monthly alimony. It's my obligation, but love and care, I can't give. You didn't love me or care about me, and I can't keep forcing affection where it's not returned. After I finished speaking, the living room was deathly silent. My sister opened her mouth as if to speak, but not a single word came out. My brother kept his head down, lost in thought. Mom stood there, tears silently streaming down her face. No one spoke anymore. We went together to Dad's hospital room. He had been in an unexpected car accident and was now in a vegetative state. Despite continuous efforts to save him, there was still no hope of recovery. Just yesterday, my sister and brother had already agreed to remove the life support. I looked at Dad. After so many years apart, he had grown so thin I could barely recognize him. After following the procedure to remove the tubes, I realized I hadn't cried at all. The funeral arrangements were tedious and drawn out. I worked alongside my older siblings to handle all the arrangements, contacting the funeral home, selecting a burial plot, and receiving relatives who came to pay their respects. Compared to my siblings who kept crying, I remained much calmer. In the end, considering the situation, I ended up taking charge of the funeral. Everyone praised me for growing up and becoming more sensible, only I knew that I just wanted to get it all over with quickly. On the day the funeral ended, I called my brother and sister together and placed a bank card on the table. This contains the dividends from my studio. The password is Mom's birthday. From now on, Mom's living expenses will come from this. If it's not enough, come to me. My brother looked at the card but said nothing. My sister, however, pushed the card back toward me. We're not short of this little money at home. Keep it for yourself. I looked at her. This was the first time in so many years she'd spoken to me in such an almost calm tone. But I just nodded and took the card back. Okay, I didn't say another word, turned around, went back to my room, opened my phone, and booked the earliest flight out for the next day, early the next morning. I pulled my suitcase downstairs, Mom was sitting on the sofa in the living room, looking like she hadn't slept all night. She saw me, stood up, and seemed to want to say something. Judy, stay a few more days. I shook my head. No, there's still a lot of work at the studio, just like how their family was always busy before. It's a perfect excuse. She didn't insist further, just silently walked me to the door. Come back. Visit more often. She looked at me, her eyes holding a plea I'd never seen before. I didn't answer, just pulled my suitcase and walked through here without looking back. The plane soared into the sky, turning the city behind into a tiny speck of light. Outside the window, the sea of clouds churned, and I glanced back once more at the city where I grew up. At that moment, my eyes suddenly welled up with tears. Truth be told, it's not that I never longed for love. That time during the new year when I was left alone at the homestay. Every single day, I hid under the covers, secretly hoping my parents' phone call would come. Actually, the 7th time I was forgotten at the amusement park. I sat on a bench waiting for 5 hours until it got dark. What was on my mind wasn't why they didn't want me anymore, but how I could explain myself when they found me so they wouldn't get angry. The first time I was kidnapped by traffickers, I was so relieved that I called the police first instead of dialing my parents' number. Every time I reached out with hope in my heart. Every time, all I grasp is a handful of air. When longing lingers too long, when waiting stretches too far, the heart seems to grow numb, little by little. So it turns out human love has its limits, like savings in an account, only withdrawals, no deposits, until one day it's all spent. Mine, it seems, is running dangerously low, for the rest of my life. I only want to spend it loving myself. In that household, I was the child who could be easily overlooked. But to me, I am my entire world. In the future, I will take good care of myself. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.